the finale of the Samhain Campaign, today on Agranak Studios.
Hey there, it's DM's off. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you know when we upload new videos.
This video is part 4 in a series, so if you haven't watched those videos, make sure you go back and watch those. So Amber, Thorn, Ethel, and Ian head back to Deadwater, along with the graveyard golem that is inhabited by Abigail, as well as Pa. As they head back into Deadwater, they see these ginormous flies swarming all around. Some are landing on the tops of buildings, and their wings are shaking the shingles of the buildings. People are screaming all over the place. Those that can are fighting. Thorn sees his uncle, who he forgot was coming to visit him, afar off. Uncle is the new character that the player that was playing Tobias, and Tobias died last session, is now playing. He's still young, so Grandma and Grandpa had a late child. He's 13 years old. Scrappy, shaggy, dirty blonde hair, really spry. Uncle. But there's a fight afoot. Ginormous flies dive-bombing and causing havoc. Ethel takes out one of the flies with a magic bolt of energy. Abigail, the graveyard golem, wants to come in and help, but she can't. As soon as she steps on the plank-board streets of Deadwater, she falls through because of her massiveness. She's made out of stones and iron. This precludes her from joining in to the fight, though there are flies on the outside that she deals with. The party kind of has a great time with it as they are evading most of the hits by their armor rolls. This happens to set the tone for the evening. Thorn's uncle, Enroke, the new PC, attacks. Pa attacks. And everyone is just killing flies left and right. It's an awesome start to the evening. It's just a short period of time and all the flies are taken out. Slaughtered. Fog rolls into the early morning. It's a bit more calm than usual, and a lot of the townsfolk are just kind of dejected because of this attack. Ethel jumps up to go visit Mrs. Riley. They have the Doulahan's head. The other kids follow. They knock on the door to present the head to Mrs. Riley. She invites the kids in and asks them to put the Doulahan head down. She asks the kids to gather around and grab hands. They do. Mrs. Riley begins to chant, and then everything goes silent. The head of the Doulahan's eyes open up. Kind of hops around a bit and looks at each of the kids. The Doulahan speaks. "Why have you summoned me? Where is my forest? Where is my resting place?" Ethel speaks up immediately. "Do you know what the children of the flies are?" "Demons are coming." And Thorn speaks up. "Listen up, pumpkin breath. I've already lost one friend, and if you know how to protect our town, you better tell us. Otherwise, I'm sticking this silver between your eyes," threatening the Doulahan's head. The Doulahan breathes in and exhales a blast of fire right at Thorn. He misses the first roll to evade and has to use one of his hero die in order to evade the fire. The fire licks up the side of the cabin and chaos erupts. Mrs. Riley speaks up. "What are you doing? Do not anger the Doulahan!" She douses the walls with water. As well, Pa is there and he helps. The Doulahan's head shuts down. After the fire goes out, the Doulahan opens one eye. "You disrespectful piece of dragon dung!" Thorn promptly apologizes and asks, "Can you help us at all? I'm your prisoner. What do you want from me?" Thorn says, "Information about the flies and the demons." The Doulahan has information. "The demon will not appear as itself, but will appear as a mass of pumpkins. Know this, the vines are the life. Target the vines." Amber asks, "Do you know when it's coming?" Closes its eyes and says, "Soon. Very soon." Mrs. Riley shakes her apron out of water, heads over to Thorn, and smacks him. Amber speaks up. "That's not how he learns." Doulahan says, "You'll learn respect." Mrs. Riley says, "Yeah, what he said." Amber stands up and says, "We're the only ones standing in the way of everyone dying." Mrs. Riley walks up to Thorn, looks at Amber, and smacks him again. Mrs. Riley says, "You'll learn to respect." But Thorn uses some luck and is able to catch her hand before he's slapped. Thorn says, "See? I can learn. I won't do that again. I just want to help. What do you want from all of this, Mrs. Riley? She walks over, sits into a rocking chair, and begins to rock. I want some peace and quiet in my old age. There's talk of demons and flies. But you did bring me the head of the Doulahan. That is commendable. And that head is a bomb. Take it with you. The Doulahan will have to find himself another. Also, Ethel, I have something for you. She walks over to a chest, pops it open. 3 scrolls. I have her roll randomly using the scrolls from Easy D6. Basically a 1 in 36 chance of getting anything here. She rolls Druzella's Dolly, which can shrink you to the size of a doll. She rolls Melina's Spirit Call, which basically resurrects someone. This is all random. I did not have this planned. And she rolls Soulbind of Max Draxus, which doesn't come into play. At this point, I don't know if any of these are beneficial or not. I'm giving them to her to use as she sees fit, or as the party sees fit. And that's told by Mrs. Riley. I don't know if any of these will help. Use them as you see fit. I may be a crotchety old lady and spank you in the face from time to time, but I do want our town back, and I am grateful to you. Ethel takes out Maggot, her imp, and shows it to her. The old lady's not frightened, nor she's fond of it, but she does say, You have an imp. You're more powerful than I thought. She offers everyone some more of her little treats. Some refuse them, like Amber. Others take them. She lifts up one piece and she says, To our deaths. And they all eat. Some of them stow some away. The kids have a discussion on who might be able to help them. Amber storms out of the cabin, thinking all the adults in this town are crazy and unhelpful. Ian talks to Pa and asks him to go and talk to Uncle. Try to talk some sense into him. See what he can do to help. He agrees. When Amber storms outside, she sees a kind of younger woman. Her name is Poppy Mackenzie. She runs the local apothecary. She speaks to Amber. Where are you off to? Are you all right? Amber says, all the adults here are no help at all. Might you be able to help us? There's a demon coming, and we need help. Do you have anything at your apothecary that might be able to help us? She says, yes, follow me. Amber speaks up. Can we wait for my friends? And just as soon as that happens, the door opens and everybody slams into the backside of Poppy. She sees all the kids, but then asks where Tobias is. They explain that he's died. She's sorrowful and says, he's been helping me pick herbs around the area, but I missed that lad. She looks over, sees one of the felled flies on the ground, and she sticks it with a knife and fills up a vial with some of its juices. The kids tell her that a huge pumpkin is coming, and that they need all the help that they can get. Poppy walks them over to the apothecary. As they enter the apothecary, a waft of smells just fills their senses. And just for fun, I have them all roll to see if they have allergies, anything in there. And Amber rolls a 1. She begins to sneeze. Poppy promptly goes over and finds a remedy and gives it to her, and her sinuses clear up. They're looking around, trying to find anything that might help, asking Poppy, do you know anything that might help? And the rolls were actually kind of bad, so it ended up that the only thing that she had was some black fungus that is used to kill plants. And if Ethel or someone else could enhance it with magic, it could actually do some damage in a very small period of time. Thorn asks about potions, anything for charms or something like that. And she does. She has one. And hands it to him. He says at first he wants to try and convince the mayor to help. Poppy has just the potion and hands it to him, something she's been holding on to for years. Amber asks for an apple for Horn Fanny, the goat. She has one, gives it to her. She turns to Ian the archer and says, I've got some poison. You could use it to tip your arrows. 2 doses. She hands him a small vial and some gloves to handle it. She also has a potion that can sustain anyone that is dropped to 0 hits and can essentially sustain them. I'm figuring that shit's gonna go down and they're gonna need this. The kids start talking amongst themselves. When is the demon gonna appear? Is it tomorrow, the next night? We don't know. Poppy goes behind the counter and takes out a small bag. Inside that bag, she grabs out what's in there. It's bones, beaks, and twigs and different things and rocks. Throws it on the ground, spits on it, and swirls it about. She's divining something. She looks up to them and says, it will arrive on Samhain Eve, 3 nights away. And then she asks them to meet her tomorrow at the site of where all the pumpkins have been piled up. They agree. The following night, they're all gathered at the pumpkin refuse heap. Poppy has created a magic circle. She's wearing traditional folk witch's garb. She waves the kids towards her. Amber asks, "What do you need from us?" She replies, "I need your blood." Amber says, "Why do you need that?" Poppy says, "Your blood will be used to consecrate the area, possibly giving you protection." While Amber's asking this, all the kids already have out a little knife and are ready to cut themselves in various locations for the blood, just waiting for Poppy's command. Poppy begins by cutting her own hand and putting a drop of blood into a small cauldron that has some fire going. They all cut themselves, put some blood into it. Maggot comes up to Ethel and laps up her blood that's dripping down. And Poppy's surprised to see the little maggot. And Poppy asks, What's its name?" Ethel says, "Maggot." "Why did you name it that?"
Because he's cute and squishy, like a maggot.
Poppy smiles and then throws some powder onto the fire, and green flame leaps out of it, launching up into the air, creating a canopy that's about a 200-foot radius. She's speaking arcane words. She asks them to take a look at the radius and make sure that they're inside of it while the battle's happening, and it might give them a little help. They ask her to be a part of the fight. She says, "I'm just a folk witch. I'm not as powerful as all of you. Can't do instantaneous magic, but I'll be near if you need me." Then the main question comes up. Ethel has this scroll, resurrection scroll, and they start to argue amongst themselves. Should we use this for Abigail? Should we use it for Tobias? What do we do? Round and round they talk. Then they ask Abigail, who's there, "Do you want to be resurrected?" She signals to them, "Maybe. Would you rather see Tobias resurrected?" She nods yes. They talk back and forth a little bit and decide they should probably call out for Mortimer Graves to see what he says, because he was the one that buried Tobias. They don't want to mess up anything or cause a curse. So Ian calls out, "Mortimer Graves!" Mortimer appears not too far off. The kids say, "We've got a question for you."
Well, it's close to Samhain Eve. You got any candy?
They do. Some left over from Eleanor Riley and hand it to him, and he eats it. They speak of the demon coming, and he confirms it, and he says,
"The demon's name is Tosris. It's the god of the affinity of the soul. Why'd you call me out?"
They say that they wanted his permission to dig up Toby's body because he was the one that buried him, and that they have this scroll that could possibly resurrect him.
Of course. And in fact, I'll let you talk to him to see what he says about being resurrected. It does come with a price.
They ask Abigail to go and dig up Toby's body. She makes short work of it, digging down 6 feet, taking the coffin out, placing it on the ground, and flipping the lid off. There lies Tobias. Ian walks over, as well as the other kids. Mortimer knocks on the side of the coffin.
"Tobias, there's some people here that want to speak with you."
Tobias awakens. His eyes flutter open. They ask Toby if he wants to be resurrected. Long story short, he does. Ethel pulls out the scroll, and basically, she rolls 2d6. If she rolls a 1 on either one, it does not go off. She needs a 3 or more for it to work. She rolls a 2 and a 4. Tobias' spirit comes flooding back into his body. I did not see that coming. This was not planned for. It was a surprise for all of us. And that's the beauty of allowing the dice to fall where they may. Let the dice tell the story. Tobias rises up with 1 strike, but he now has a perpetual pale look about him like he's the Walking Dead. It's kind of cool, actually. Poppy comes up to tend to the freshly resurrected Toby, and for the next 2 nights, giving him basically 2 more strikes for a total of 3. Now the fight looms just 2 days away on Samhain Eve, and the kids are consumed by it. We fade to black, and now it's Samhain Eve. The kids go out to the site midday. Poppy is there, has a small fire going, but wind has come into the area and it's keeping the fire really tame. It's not giving off a lot of heat. There's a cold bite in the air. Twilight begins to set in the sky, and in the Samhain Vale, twilight lasts for 4 or 5 hours. All the kids get ready for this impending doom. Ian poisons the tips of 2 arrows. Amber feeds Horn Fanny, her squirrels, and her possum. Ethel pets Maggot. Abigail's stones grind together. Uncle sharpens his blade. So on and so forth. Everyone's getting ready. Then The pile of pumpkins begin to writhe like maggots. The pumpkin horrors begin to rise up and emerge very quickly. Ian shoots one immediately. Magic flies. Toby tosses rocks, as well as Uncle. The pumpkins attack back, but many of them are just turned to mush very quickly. But then other pumpkin horrors rise up out of this mass. At one point, a bunch of these pumpkins target Abigail as the graveyard golem, jumping on her, but she's able to fend some of them off. She ends up sustaining 3 strikes. Her stony body is breaking apart little by little as these pumpkin horrors are thrusting their vines in and expanding them to break off pieces. Slowly but surely, the pumpkin horrors are being defeated, and a pumpkin abomination rises up out of the mass, much like pumpkin rot from session 1 that targeted Thorn. Ian targets this thing, pulling back one of his poisoned arrows and shooting. Crit, confirm, using luck dice, etc. He takes it down with 7 hits because that's what it had. It was an amazing takedown. All the other pumpkin horrors are dealt with in like fashion. The rolls are on fire coming from the players. Then the kids start to hear an incantation on the wind. The sound of wings flapping in the air. A fly lands just out of reach and then turns into a purple-robed cultist of the affinity of the soul. The cultist begins to run, but then turns into a mist and then is absorbed into the pile of pumpkins. Everything goes cold and the pumpkins freeze over. 10 giant flies that come into the area dive bomb for this pile, going and breaking through the ice and being absorbed into the pile. Uncle begins to cry out to the goddess Dita, the goddess of many smokes, asks for her protection or healing or something. What is granted is 3 hits and is given to him to distribute. Basically healing. 2 are given to Abigail, 1's given to Tobias. Smoke envelops them and Tobias begins to cough, taking in this healing power. Ethel takes the Doulahan pumpkin head, stuffs it full of this black moss fungus that they got from Poppy, magically imbues it, and then uses the dolly scroll to shrink it down. She's able to cast the scroll and then hands this small pumpkin to Maggot. All of a sudden, more tiny pumpkin horrors begin to rise up, and a giant one is a pumpkin monstrosity, much like a beholder, just coming up before them. It roars to life. It's an Overgourd from Reaper Mini, one of their Kickstarters, so this is a rare find. So glad that I found it. So we'll call it the Overgourd moving forward. Arrows are loosed, magic flies. Thorn lunges at the Overgourd, targeting the vines, severing one of the smaller heads. Abigail smashes at the huge beast. It is chaos. The Overgourd uses a breath weapon, breathes out spectral energies. Abigail, Maggot, and Paw are the targets, but the protection of the canopy keeps them from being hit by it. It's amazing. They're all safe at the moment. The pumpkin horrors are attacking Tobias and Thorn. The characters are making armor save after armor save. They are on fire. It's amazing, especially when a lot of them need a 5 or a 6 on a single D6. Did I mention that easy D6 is fucking amazing? The Overgourd is taking many hits. Chunks of pumpkin are flying everywhere. Little pumpkin horrors being exploded left and right. Ethel releases Maggot. Maggot rushes in with the head of the Doulahan that's now been shrunken down. Maggot positions himself underneath the Overgourd. He's gonna activate the pumpkin head, all while offing himself. But that's alright, he respawns the next day. I let Ethel know it'll go off as long as she does not roll a 1. She picks up the D6, throws it down, and you guessed it, it's not a 1, it's a 3! I made it so this bomb was 5 hits. But then she reminds me of the black fungus. I say, heck yeah, it ignites and turns into a pumpkin-consuming fungus, magically charged. I ask her to roll a d6. She crits, confirms, crits again, confirm. Then she rolls a 4. But I had given all the players a single one of these cards, the advantage deck from Easy D6, I printed them out on this cardstock. It's not even in color. But she had this card right here. Reroll a crit confirmation. Yeah, she got another 6. She ends up rolling a 5, throwing a luck die at it, getting another crit confirmation. It was friggin' insane. I love exploding dice, and I love exploding pumpkins. I lost count. I don't even remember how many, but I know that the amount of damage that was sustained by that one attack was able to equal the 20 strikes that it had. Of course, it had taken strikes before that. It was epic. The Overgourd falls to the ground. All the pumpkin horrors lose their energy, their animation, and fall down as well. The battle is over. Victory. But then, everyone sees a horde of spirits in the night sky coming down, illuminated, coming towards them. Thunder is cracking across the sky. It's heard throughout the Samhain Vale. Mrs. Riley, as well as Poppy and others, come out from hiding. Poppy looks up and says, "The ancestors are coming back. It's Samhain Eve, of course." The spirits in the sky descend down onto the pumpkins that are all in the area. The ancestors, the spirits, begin to leap into the pumpkins and animate them, much like they would have done on manifestation. The mushy ones grow strong. Abigail's spirit pops out of the graveyard golem and goes into one of these pumpkins and speaks with the kids. Everyone communes with each other, hanging out. Musicians come out, bonfires are lit. Samhain Eve truly is special in the Samhain Vale. The mayor comes out, congratulates the kids, completely grateful. And the mayor speaks with Abigail freely in this pumpkin form. There's a bit of an epilogue, and they carry on through the night having victory. Thorn comes up to Mr. Darkwater, Tobias and Ian's father. He says, "I just want to say cheers." And Pa drinks the liquid. And then Thorn says, "I just thought it would be kind of nice if you would adopt me into the family." And then Thorn throws down the vial onto the ground. Pa says, Of course. We'll talk to the magistrate in the morning." They end up taking the graveyard golem face of Abigail that they had carved earlier and bring it over to their clubhouse, the dolmen, and they place it in there. And that's the end. The kids are victorious. And a resurrection I didn't see, and the end of my beautiful Overgourd, though I'm sure he'll make a reappearance. Hey, if you want to hear the unedited audio of this, it's on our Patreon page. And the links to the products and whatnot that I used are down in the dungeon. As well, links to Discord and all the places that Agranak Studios is at. Hey, thanks for stopping by Agranak Studios, and we'll see you on the next one. Later.
This video is brought to you by the generous support of our patrons. Consider becoming a patron. There's a link down in the dungeon. Down there. Also, we have links to other places that Agranak Studios is at.
All right, do this and do that and do this and do that. And watch this video.